Have you ever wondered why the moments you fear will make him turn away are often the very sparks that draw him closer? Most people believe desire ignites from perfection, flawless timing, flawless words, but the truth is far more primal. What you think pushes him back may, in fact, awaken something ancient within him. Carl Jung believed that our hidden signals, those unconscious echoes of the soul, speak louder than any calculated gesture, and tonight you will begin to sense their quiet power. Beneath the surface of every woman lives a constellation of archetypes, the maiden who carries innocence and the whisper of new beginnings, the mother who nourishes and steadies, the enchantress who bends shadow and light into irresistible magnetism. These are not roles you perform, they are forces of the unconscious, shaping the very air around you. When a man encounters them, he feels a pull that defies logic. It is not the curve of a smile or the elegance of a dress that stirs him, but the vibration of something older than speech, older than the body itself. Picture a quiet evening where you enter a room without announcement. The conversation slows. His eyes lift before reason tells him why. He senses more than he sees. The subtle tilt of your head, the calm weight of your presence, these are not accidents. They are signals rising from the depths, like tides pulled by a moon he cannot name. In Jungian terms, you have brushed against his anima, the feminine image that lives in the core of every man, waiting to be awakened. Some women rush to fill silence, to explain their worth. But silence is a language of its own. It invites projection, that mysterious process Jung described where the hidden desires of the psyche reach outward for a vessel. When you allow stillness to linger, you offer him a mirror of his own longing. He feels desire, yet cannot trace it back to a simple cause. This is not manipulation, it is the natural dance of unconscious energies recognizing each other across the gulf of ordinary life. Consider the power of contradiction. Strength wrapped in softness. Eyes that hold both mystery and welcome. When you embody these paradoxes, you reflect the wholeness he seeks within himself. The Stoics called it the union of opposites, fire and water, courage and grace. A man senses that union as a call to his own completion, a reminder of the inner feminine he has denied or forgotten. It is not about playing a role. It is about living the full spectrum of your being, unafraid of the shadow that gives depth to your light. Notice how your own awareness sharpens when you stop reaching outward and begin to listen inward. Breath slows. The body finds its own rhythm. Here lies the first secret signal, authenticity without explanation. A woman anchored in her own essence does not perform, she emanates. He feels it before he understands it. Desire ignites not because you seek him, but because you have claimed yourself. This is the threshold of the 7 signals, the quiet initiation into a realm where psychology and soul entwine. Each signal is less an action than a state of being, each one a key that turns not in his heart alone but in yours as well. You will not need to chase, to plead, to persuade. The unconscious speaks in symbols older than time, and when you embody them, he listens, whether he wishes to or not. The second signal rises from a realm most try to bury, the sacred shadow. Jung taught that every psyche carries a dark twin, the hidden aspects we deny to appear lovable. Yet it is precisely the woman who acknowledges her own shadow that unsettles and captivates. She does not broadcast her wounds, nor does she hide them. Instead, she allows the subtle gravity of her complexity to radiate, like the quiet pull of a moon behind storm clouds. A man senses the depth and cannot help but lean closer, drawn by a mystery he cannot map. Observe how she moves through a room. There is no frantic effort to shine, no desperate grasp for approval. Instead, she walks with the still authority of someone who has wrestled her own chaos and survived. Her laughter carries both sunlight and rain. Her eyes hold stories she may never tell. This is not a performance, it is the residue of honest self-knowledge. When a man encounters such presence, his own unconscious stirs. He feels both the allure of comfort and the tingle of danger, as if he might glimpse something in her that could awaken something long sleeping in himself. To embrace the shadow is to wield the paradox of light and dark, pleasure and pain, creation and destruction. The Stoics spoke of amor fati, love of one's fate. She lives this truth without declaring it, embodying the acceptance of every wound, every misstep, every secret desire. In her silence, he senses the courage to face what he hides. And because the masculine unconscious yearns for wholeness, he is compelled toward the woman who mirrors the very pieces he cannot yet claim. There is a quiet magnetism in restraint. While the world teaches women to reveal everything to gain affection, the shadowed woman reveals only what is essential. Her mystery is not coyness, it is integrity. She knows that intimacy is not built through relentless exposure, but through the slow unveiling of trust. Each glance, each pause, each unspoken thought becomes a subtle invitation for him to venture inward, to confront the unlit corners of his own soul. The second signal is not a gesture you practice in a mirror, it is the natural exhale of a life lived in full spectrum. When you own your contradictions, the wildness and the discipline, the desire and the refusal, you create an atmosphere where a man's carefully constructed defenses begin to dissolve. He is not simply attracted, he is transformed by the recognition of his own shadow in yours. Desire, then, becomes a bridge to something far deeper than fleeting passion. As you step into this awareness, you may notice the world slowing around you. Conversations take on a richer texture. Eyes linger a moment longer. You are no longer performing for the gaze, and in this freedom lies the very signal that ignites his deepest curiosity. The unconscious speaks in riddles, and the woman who carries her shadow without shame becomes a living riddle, one he cannot stop trying to solve. Here the dance of attraction becomes a silent dialogue between two inner worlds. You need not rush it. The second signal is patient, steady, unforced. It is the calm heartbeat beneath the storm, the quiet invitation to a journey without a map. And as he follows, he begins to awaken to the truth, it is not your perfection that draws him, but your wholeness, luminous and dark. The third signal unfurls in the subtle power of embodied sovereignty, a presence that speaks without words, declaring that your life is your own. This is the energy of the queen archetype, not as a title of dominance but as a state of inner command. She does not compete for attention, nor does she shrink to avoid it. She is the axis around which her own world turns, and the masculine unconscious feels that gravitational center like a force of nature. In her calm authority, he senses a home he has never known yet instinctively longs to enter. Picture the way she holds her posture, spine aligned as if the earth itself lifts her upward, movements neither hurried nor hesitant. When she speaks, silence gathers like a halo around each word. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires the reconciliation of inner opposites. A woman who has walked this path radiates a completeness that calls to the unfulfilled places in a man's psyche. He feels her as both invitation and challenge, a reminder that true desire is not the hunger for possession but the yearning for union with what makes him whole. There is a quiet daring in her independence. She moves through life not as a rebel who rejects love, but as a sovereign who welcomes it without surrendering her throne. He cannot help but notice that she seeks no validation. She welcomes companionship but does not collapse into it. The modern world often confuses freedom with detachment, but her freedom is the deeper kind, the freedom of one who belongs first to herself. In her presence, he feels the echo of his own need for autonomy, and paradoxically, this recognition draws him closer. This signal is not loud. It is not a declaration posted for all to see. It is the gentle but unyielding awareness that your worth is not contingent on anyone's gaze. You might sit across a table, listening more than speaking, and yet the current of your self-possession floods the space. He senses that no flattery can sway you, no silence can intimidate you. Desire begins to burn in that tension, the meeting of a man who longs to lead and a woman who cannot be led away from herself. The Stoics taught that mastery of the self is the only true power. She embodies this lesson without reciting a single maxim. Her choices are deliberate. Her emotions are acknowledged but not allowed to rule her. She can laugh without seeking approval, speak truth without fear of withdrawal. Each action carries the weight of someone who knows that love is not a prize to be won but a meeting of equals. In that recognition, she becomes the mirror of his own unclaimed strength. To witness such sovereignty is to confront both awe and humility. He may attempt to impress her with grand gestures or subtle tests, yet none of it shifts the ground beneath her feet. She remains centered, and that center becomes the very space where intimacy can grow. Attraction here is not the fever of conquest but the slow ignition of respect. He does not simply desire her body, he desires the serenity of her self-governed soul. The third signal is a quiet kingdom. You need not announce it, only inhabit it. When you walk in the truth of your own authority, when you no longer barter your essence for affection, you become the compass that guides the dance. He feels it before he understands it, a call to step forward not as a captor but as a companion. And in that recognition, the flame of his deepest desire brightens, drawn to the fourth signal awakens in the art of radiant vulnerability, a paradox that startles the guarded heart. This is not the fragility of someone seeking rescue, it is the courage of a soul willing to be seen without armor. Jung wrote of the anima as a bridge to the unconscious, and when a woman reveals her authentic softness, she offers that bridge. Her openness is not a plea but a revelation. Here is a person who trusts life enough to let the hidden currents show. A man senses this not as weakness but as a rare invitation to step beyond the masks he wears. Picture the quiet intimacy of a moment when she shares a truth without rehearsal. Perhaps a small fear, a memory still trembling with ache, or a dream that feels too tender for daylight. She does not dramatize it, does not demand consolation. She simply allows it to exist between them like a candle flame in the dark. In that flicker, he glimpses the soul beneath the surface, and the archetypal protector within him stirs. Yet what draws him is not the chance to save her, it is the recognition of his own hidden longing to be met with such fearless honesty. Radiant vulnerability carries an unspoken power because it is rooted in self-trust. The woman who embodies it has already faced her own depths and found them survivable. She does not offer every secret to everyone, she chooses moments with care, understanding that intimacy is a sacred exchange. When she speaks, her words are steady, uncoated with manipulation. She knows that love built on performance collapses under the weight of truth. This steadiness disarms the masculine psyche, calling him to lay down his defenses and approach in reverence. There is an elemental beauty in her willingness to feel. The Stoics valued emotional clarity, not numbness, and she reflects this wisdom. Her tears, when they come, are unashamed, her laughter, when it rises, is whole. She allows emotion to move through her without letting it govern her, and in that balance she becomes a living lesson in courage. A man drawn to such presence finds that his own rigid boundaries soften, not through force but through resonance. He recognizes that strength is not the absence of feeling but the mastery of it. In this fourth signal, the dance of attraction deepens into communion. He no longer sees a facade to chase or conquer, he sees a human soul, luminous in its imperfection. Desire ignites differently here. It is no longer the frantic spark of novelty but the slow, enduring flame of recognition. The woman who can stand in her own vulnerability teaches him that intimacy is not built on control, but on mutual surrender to truth. This signal does not require grand confessions or theatrical gestures. Sometimes it is as simple as a gaze that does not flinch, a quiet yes to being fully present in the moment. The power lies in the willingness to let another witness your humanity. And paradoxically, the more you allow yourself to be fully human, the more he perceives you as otherworldly. For the unconscious craves the sacred, and there is nothing more sacred than a heart unmasked. As you embody radiant vulnerability, you step into a realm where attraction becomes something rarer than passion, a mutual recognition of souls. He feels the pull not because you need him, but because you have shown that need is not a prison. In that revelation, desire becomes devotion, and the space between you grows rich with possibility. The fifth signal lives in the quiet fire of creative mystery, a force that cannot be measured, only felt. It is the pulse of imagination, the shimmer of unpredictability that keeps the air around you alive with possibility. Jung spoke of the transcendent function, where opposites merge to give birth to something new. A woman who embodies this signal becomes that merging, a living threshold between the known and the unknowable. She does not merely follow the world's patterns, she weaves her own, and in doing so she awakens the dormant dreamer in every man who draws near. Watch how she moves through a day. She might pause to notice the dance of shadow and light on a wall, or create beauty in the smallest of gestures, a phrase softly spoken, a glance that lingers a heartbeat too long. Her curiosity is not a performance, it is her natural state. She sees layers where others see surfaces, and her attention transforms the ordinary into something almost mythic. This is not eccentricity. It is the sign of a psyche attuned to symbols, a soul conversing with the invisible. A man encountering such presence feels a stirring he cannot name. It is not simply attraction, it is the awakening of his own latent creativity, the anima within him responding to the call of the mysterious feminine. He senses that time with her will never become a repetition of yesterday. Each meeting carries the possibility of surprise, as though the universe itself conspires to reveal new facets through her. Desire in this context is not the hunger for possession but the thrill of discovery. The creative mystery is not about constant novelty or restless change. It is about depth, an ability to find wonder in the familiar, to let silence bloom into revelation. The Stoics taught that the world reveals itself to the attentive mind, and she embodies this truth. Whether she is alone or in company, her gaze suggests that she communes with something beyond the visible. She may share a sudden insight that reframes an entire conversation, or pose a question so penetrating it lingers long after words have faded. These are not rehearsed tricks, they are the natural outpouring of a mind and heart alive to hidden connections. Her unpredictability is never chaotic. It is the freedom of someone who trusts the unknown, who knows that life's greatest beauty often arrives without a script. She does not cling to rigid plans or demand guarantees. Instead, she moves with the rhythm of intuition, and in her presence he feels the thrill of stepping beyond control. The masculine psyche, often burdened by the need for structure, finds liberation in her fluidity. Desire ignites not because she promises excitement, but because she embodies the mystery of creation itself. To witness this signal is to be reminded that love is a living art. It cannot be caged or replicated. Each moment with her is an encounter with the infinite, a doorway to something larger than two selves. He may not understand why a simple walk beside her feels like a journey through untamed landscapes, but he feels it nonetheless. And in that feeling, he is changed. The fifth signal is the breath of the unknown, the silent invitation to keep exploring. You need not announce it, for true mystery is never advertised. It is carried in the way you see the world, in the courage to let life remain larger than any single story. And as he senses this, his desire becomes a quest, not to capture you, but to awaken the vast and hidden regions of his own. The sixth signal emerges from the deep current of intuitive attunement, the almost preternatural ability to sense what moves beneath words. Jung believed that intuition was the language of the unconscious, the bridge between seen and unseen. When a woman lives from this inner compass, she becomes more than companion or muse, she becomes a mirror to the unseen architecture of a man's own psyche. He may not grasp it consciously, yet he feels it as a subtle recognition, the way one feels the approach of a storm before the sky darkens. Imagine a quiet conversation where she listens not only to the phrases he speaks, but to the pauses, the breath, the tremor behind a syllable. She notices what is not said and responds to it with a glance, a question, or the simple grace of presence. There is no performance in this, no script. Her intuition flows like an underground river, guiding her words and silences alike. He experiences the uncanny sense of being known without confession, and the protective barriers he carries begin to soften. Intuitive attunement is not mind reading, it is profound empathy grounded in self-awareness. She has learned to hear her own inner signals, the subtle shifts of energy, the whispers of instinct, and therefore can feel the pulse of another without losing her center. The Stoics spoke of oikiosis, the natural affinity that draws beings toward harmony. In her company, a man feels that affinity awaken, as if the space between them hums with a music older than thought. This sixth signal carries an almost sacred quality because it respects mystery even as it perceives it. She does not exploit her insight to control, she allows it to guide her toward deeper understanding. When he falters, she senses the fracture before he names it. When he celebrates, she shares the joy without needing to steal the light. Her presence becomes a sanctuary where his unspoken truths can surface, and in that sanctuary desire takes root, not the fevered desire of conquest, but the steady flame of recognition. There is power here, but it is the quiet power of resonance. He feels safe enough to unfold, yet challenged enough to grow. In her intuitive gaze he glimpses his own hidden potential, the parts of himself long buried under expectation. Attraction becomes alchemical, she is not only the object of longing but the catalyst of transformation. The masculine unconscious, forever seeking the anima, responds to this depth with both awe and yearning. To embody such attunement, a woman must first trust her own interior signals. She does not rush to fill silence or drown uncertainty with chatter. She allows the moment to speak. Her instincts are not infallible, but they are alive, and she honors them as a dialogue with the unseen. A subtle tilt of her head, a pause before a reply, the way her eyes meet his at precisely the moment he feels most hidden, these gestures carry a weight beyond explanation. They tell him, without words, that he is not invisible. The sixth signal is therefore less about action than about being. It is the quiet recognition that every meeting is an exchange of energies, that every soul longs to be understood beneath the noise of daily life. When you cultivate this listening heart, you need no grand declarations. Your very presence becomes a language the unconscious comprehends. And as he encounters it, he feels a desire that is as much spiritual as physical, the desire to remain in the presence of someone who hears the music of his soul. The seventh signal rises like dawn after a long night, the serene force of detached devotion. It is the final synthesis of all that came before, shadow and light, sovereignty and softness, mystery and intuition woven into quiet wholeness. Jung taught that individuation culminates in the union of opposites, and here the woman stands complete, radiant not because she seeks to be seen but because she simply is. Her love is real, yet it is never a cage. Her presence is warm, yet it does not cling. This is the rare energy that ignites a man's deepest desire while freeing him at the same time. Imagine her in a shared silence. She does not rush to fill it, does not measure its length against expectation. Her calm is not absence, it is fullness. He senses that she cares without condition, that she welcomes connection yet remains rooted in her own soil. The masculine unconscious, forever searching for the lost feminine, recognizes in her a mirror of its own completion. Desire, once frantic and grasping, transforms into reverence. Detached devotion does not mean coldness. It is love without demand, affection without possession. She may offer a touch, a glance, a word that carries the weight of eternity, and then step back with the ease of someone who knows that closeness is sweetest when it is chosen freely. He feels both the ache to stay and the wonder of her independence. In this paradox his longing deepens, not as hunger but as awe. The Stoics spoke of inner citadels, fortresses of the soul where no external force can wound. She lives there without withdrawing from the world. Her joy is her own. Her sorrow, when it comes, does not shatter her foundation. She gives because giving pleases her spirit, not because she fears the emptiness of withholding. In her, he finds not a refuge to hide from life, but a companion who shows how vast life can be. This seventh signal is the quiet culmination of a journey through every archetypal facet, the innocent and the wild, the sovereign and the vulnerable, the mysterious and the intuitive. Each has been embraced, not as masks but as truths. And so she stands before him as a whole being, neither asking nor yielding, simply present. His desire is ignited because she no longer seeks to ignite it. The very freedom of her heart becomes the flame. In her presence, time seems to soften. He feels invited to love without fear, to desire without the desperation of ownership. He understands, perhaps for the first time, that true intimacy thrives not in grasping but in choosing. And he senses that she, too, chooses, every moment anew, without chains, without compromise. This is the sacred irony, the woman who needs nothing draws everything toward her. Detached devotion is not a tactic, it is the natural exhale of a soul that has integrated its own opposites. It cannot be faked, because it is the fragrance of authentic freedom. She walks through the world unbound, and in that freedom she becomes unforgettable. Desire, at its deepest, is not the wish to possess but the yearning to stand in the presence of something eternal. Here the story finds its quiet resolution. Attraction has become